Millions of Planet Fitness members are defeating low energy and finding their big fitness energy. And right now, you can join them for just $1 down and $10 a month. That's so nice, I think I'll say it twice. You can join Planet Fitness for $1 down and $10 a month. No commitment. Cancel anytime. What a deal! Join the judgment-free zone today and enjoy tons of equipment in a clean and spacious club. $1 down, $10 a month, no commitment, cancel anytime. Deal ends Wednesday, April 5th. See Home Club for details.
Finding suitable mental health medications can be a challenge. The GeneSight test may help. Did you know that genetics can play an important role in gaining insight on how a person may respond to various medications? Understanding this may help reduce medication trial and error. GeneSight is a genetic test that analyzes variations in DNA. It shows how genes may affect someone's metabolism or response to medications commonly prescribed to treat depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. Visit genesight.com for more information.
Too loud to hear your podcast? Escape the noise with the new AirPods Pro, with up to 2 times more active noise cancellation than the previous generation. Learn more at apple.com/AirPods Pro.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. What's up, team? Hope you're doing okay on this fine afternoon or day or evening or whatever time you're listening to it. We're here to discuss why independent music is important, and then I bring on a guest to talk about their origin stories and their, comings and goings within whatever it is that they're creating. And that's what we do in this podcast, obviously. If you've been here before, welcome. If you have never been here and you were just downloading this thing for the first time, even better. Great. Welcome along to the journey. You've got like 8 years worth of shows that you get to download and listen to. But today's guest is Dylan Slocum from the band Spanish Love Songs. I fell so hard in love with this band last year. I had been aware of them. They'd been always kind of kicking around and releasing music on friends' record labels. Shout out to Wiretap Records, great record label. But this newest record is just, it consumed me. That's why I put it on my best of 2020 list. I just felt so passionately about what the band put together on this record that was it's obviously it's punk. It's got some, elements of a lot of different things going on, like Wonder Years, whatever. But they just really are doing their own sort of Menzingers-esque version of punk. And it just, oh man, I love it so much. So I had to have Dylan on the show. And that's what we do this week. You can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. And you please just leave a review somewhere. How about Apple Podcasts? I'll point you that direction. If you've been listening to the show on a regular basis and have heard me ask this before, I really do read those reviews. And actually, it was funny. Last night, I was my son, my 9-year-old son, was asking about reviews that my quote unquote fans, that's what he called them, leave on whatever. He didn't know that people leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, but so I looked at some of those reviews and I appreciate those. And it's funny because he's like, "Daddy, this person really likes you. They gave you 5 stars." And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. But anyways, removing my own ego, just it really helps the show out and obviously adds legitimacy to this thing that we're doing. But let's talk to Dylan, okay? Just good stuff.
Our mutual friend Rob from Wiretap Records, he keyed me into you guys, and I enjoyed what you did. It was one of those things where I was like, "Oh, this is cool!" I see where you guys are coming from, and the hard work you're putting into it. But frankly, I became obsessed with your newest record.
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah, thank you for putting that out.
Yeah, that's the intended response. I feel like that's been our trajectory as a band. As people look at us from afar, and they're like, "That's cool. We get it. That's fine." And then every album we get a few more people who are like, "Oh no, we're slowly being deemed as like cool. It's something weird that I've learned because I don't understand the music industry at all. But like one thing I learned is that like I feel like most bands that find any success are only finding success because they're deemed worthy of it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like if it gets a certain cosign, whatever.
If it gets a cosign, if it's a manager or an agent or a label or you know what I mean? Like somebody goes, these guys are cool. Let's give them some success now so we can all make some money.
Right. Like this is deemed legitimate, whatever that may mean.
Yeah. It's shitty, but I get it. I mean, I hate it, but I get it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And so, because like knowing knowing the band and knowing the music and then, getting really involved with this last record, I started to view you and, the band, not differently, but just in that way where it's like, okay, here's this band that exists in LA, but frankly, no one knows that you're from LA. Like, I mean, people do, but it's just one of those things where it's like, there are certain bands you point to where it's just like, oh yeah, everybody knows Touche Amore is from LA or whatever.
Nobody gives a shit about the fact that we're from LA, including LA, which is why we moved. Like, we hated it. We had no following in LA.
And I find that interesting because, you guys started to gain traction over in Europe and people started to, really pay attention to what you were doing over there. So, I guess there's no real like simple question on this entry point, but just like, was it weird for you to be like, oh, well, like, I guess we'll tour Europe more because they're paying attention to us? Like, was it weird to kind of feel like you're going in the back door in a way?
No, that's like the hidden secret is that Europe's awesome and we all want to live there anyways. So to find success over there first was, and it wasn't just first, we were finding success kind of in the Midwest and on the East Coast around the same time. But touring in Europe is so much better than touring in the States. You get paid better. The venues treat you better. It's just an all around more pleasant experience. And you get to be in Europe instead of anywhere in listen, there's a lot of corners of the United States that I absolutely love, but like nothing will beat just like, oh, we have to pull off at a bank in Switzerland to try to get rid of some money. And oh, there's Roman ruins. Like, you know what I mean? Just like,
right. Oh, there's history.
Yeah, there's history. And we went to Europe for the first time 4 years ago. And I think that's the other thing is that like, we started touring Europe because our friend and the guy who's pretty much got us every record deal we've ever had, our buddy Gregory, who tour manages us in Europe, he wanted to sell the record that he was putting out. So he's like, you have to come to Europe. So we pretty much have been touring Europe and the States equally since we started touring, which I think is a big part of that.
Yeah. And it usually bands get that opportunity, a little bit later where they start to see, different opportunities in different territories. And, it's like, oh, okay, we're more popular over here. So we're going to focus on this. But it's interesting for you to kind of have both balls in motion from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool. I have no complaints. I mean, we still see a band like we toured with Hot Water Music in Europe last year. And we also got to tour with them on a few West Coast dates here in the States. And Hot Water's like one of the, just one of the all-time bands, and they like, for being around as long as they are, the shows in the States were good. But then like we got to Europe and the shows were insane. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind being a band like that. I will happily, if we ever got that lucky, sell out like a 5,000 person show in 20 years. You know what I mean? Like I'll take it. It was awesome.
No. And that's cool for you to have that experience on both sides. Cause it is something so, enlightening when you see, Europe, generically speaking, has obviously a much longer memory than here in America. It's like, that's why, a hardcore band like Sick of It All can still exist because yeah. But it's so wild to be like, oh, wow. Like, using a band like Sick of It All, they have a tough time drawing 250 people over here, but like they literally play, like you mentioned, whatever, 5,000 to 10,000 people, like no questions asked, no problem.
Yeah, it's insane. And then on the flip side, we have friends who draw really well in the States who are much bigger than we are. And then we mentioned some of the Europe shows we do, and they're like, fuck, we can't do that in Europe. And so like, I feel like we've managed to grow kind of equally on both sides. It's weird though, because we haven't toured on our own in so long that I actually have no idea what our shows are going to look like anymore. I'm assuming they'll be bigger, but we don't quite know. Like, this was supposed to be the year where we found out, like, you kind of measure your metrics, like how many people are you, like how many cap rooms are you selling out in which markets?
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get to do that on our own this year. So, and we have the new album, which was supposed to be like the thing that like got us to
the coming out party.
Number. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the headline tour was selling well, and like a lot of places were selling out. And so now we're just like, well, I guess we'll see next year. And half the places we were going to play are probably closed. So, you know,
right.
hopefully there's a place for us to play.
Yeah. No, it is. I think it's an incredibly unique experience for a band to have that perspective, because you usually, like I said, you don't get it until you've kind of, you know, gone through the ringer, you know, in the States or your own territory or whatever.
I think that the thing that we did do though, and, you know, again, we have Gregory to thank for this, but like our first 2 tours in Europe sucked. Like, we were through the ringer there and through the ringer here. So we were just grinding on like in any country we could.
Right.
But, you know, like it's a lot harder. It's weird. It's harder and easier at the same time. Like, here you play a show to 3 people in fucking Tulsa and it's fine. You're on tour, you're grinding. It's a bit harder to justify playing to like 2 people in the middle of Switzerland, because you're like, what the fuck did we fly all the way out here for? But then at the same time, you're like, but I'm in the Alps. So like, can I really be mad? So we treated the first few European tours as like vacation.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. You're like, there's a lot more logistics involved getting here.
It's a nightmare, but it's great. And I mean, to be fair, we kind of treat every tour like it's vacation, because we're all older. You know, our youngest member is about to turn 30.
Right.
So we're all in our early, I guess some of us are in our mid 30s now. That's weird. But so like every tour that we've ever been on is like a vacation for us, up until this year when we all quit or lost our jobs, because we were touring so much.
Sure.
And then it's Kyle, was the last one of us to lose his job. And he like was working his other dream job as a recording engineer at like a huge commercial studio in LA. And the day before we were supposed to leave for the Menzingers tour, his boss was like, I didn't approve that time off. And he's like, cool, here's my keys. So, and then he was like so proud of himself. And then like 2 months later, everything is shut down. And he's like, fuck.
Yeah, you're like, well, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. I mean, he would have been screwed there too. It's not like a lot of people were working in the studio at the start of it all. So
yeah, for sure. And so putting the focus on you, I know you grew up in California. Like where in particular? Was it like Central California? Where'd you come up?
No, I'm from the Inland Empire, the IE.
Of course, 909.
The 909, formerly 909, now the 951.
Yep.
It's great. Jake, who runs Pure Noise Records, is also like, we grew up like 25 minutes from each other. So we joke about this a lot. It is the land that, how do I describe it? The land where motocross was invented, and the land where Breaking Bad was originally set before they moved it to New Mexico for tax reasons. Right. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about where I'm from.
Yeah. What city in particular? Like, were you?
I'm Riverside? From Menifee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know. Yeah. You're from. You get it. A lot of people, when I say that, I'll say like Temecula. People would get that.
Yeah. You're like, dude, huge difference between Temecula and Yucaipa. And
right. And everybody's like, where's that? Is that Riverside? Where's that? Is that the desert? Yeah. It's the desert. It's Jesus land. It's weird. It's like the Red Sea, the red pocket of liberal California. It's rough, but it's, you know.
Yeah, but it's home.
It's weird. I didn't realize it until I got into like my early to mid 20s how, because I thought I was like I grew up in like a pretty progressive household, and I thought I had a lot of big ideas and was smart and had seen, you know, a decent amount of things. And I was like, man, I lived a very sheltered life just by like geographical, like I may as well have been born in the middle of Iowa. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It was
your
weird.
Exposure. Right.
Yeah, it was weird. I have friends who were like, yeah, but when I was 17, I was touring and we were in Boston and then in Philly, and we'd play, you know, New York, and then we'd drive out to here and to there. And I'm like, yeah, we played Temecula, and then we would go to Orange County. That was our
Yeah. We'd be stoked if we got a show at Chain Reaction.
If we got a show I played a show at Chain when I was 19, and that was the coolest thing ever, you know, and that was like, but that was it. It's like, what else were we doing?
Totally.
So Yeah. It was weird. It was a backwards place.
Sure. And I know from just, reading other interviews and your lyrical content as well. I mean, you definitely were raised in a, working class, like very, very much on, salt of the earth. People.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad was in a construction union most of my entire life. And my mom had to go back to work when I was 4. Okay. So my grandpa raised us partially. And then, by the time I was like 9, we'd get out of school and I'd go home with my little brother, and we didn't have babysitters or anything. So it was like a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old at home alone while both my parents were working, and my older brother was at school still. So like, sure. I thought that was normal. I mean, that was the 90s. You know what I mean? It was like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
It was just like, don't talk to strangers. Don't get abducted. You're fine. Go home.
Right. Yeah. You know how to make a peanut butter and jelly. You're fine.
Yeah, you're good. Don't eat a hot dog because you might choke. Like, right. Yeah. Literally, that was a warning from my mom. Like, you guys can eat, just don't eat hot dogs.
Right. Because you guys do not know the Heimlich maneuver yet.
Yeah, exactly. Eat something that's soft and you can handle. I mean, we'd only be home for like an hour and a half as she would like race home from work. But yeah, that was the world I grew up in. And I thought that was normal. Right. I mean, it is normal. That's most of America.
Yeah. And especially too in areas, like what you grew up in, where it's, it is, rural-ish, small community-ish, but, like you're in spitting distance to, large cities and stuff like that. But, it's the conceit of like, oh yeah, like, neighbors know each other and like people kind of watch out for one another.
It's the exurbs. It's, I guess it's further out than the exurbs. It's the farm. It's the suburban farms, I guess, is like, because I was an hour from San Diego, an hour and a half from LA. 25 minutes from Riverside, which I guess wasn't as big back then.
Sure.
And of course, not all of our parents, but a lot of our parents worked in those places. But they moved out where it was cheap because, that's where they could afford to live.
Yep.
So it was definitely a weird place. And, everybody you knew grew up to, I say this with this is my parents' professions, but like you worked at a bank or you went into construction or you became a cop. Like those were the options. What people did. And sure enough, most of the people that I don't talk to from high school anymore went into banking, or not banking, worked at a bank, worked construction, or became cops. And that's just what it is. And you don't think about it. You got to survive.
Right. That's the life path.
Yeah,
right.
That's it.
And so it sounds like you were the middle child, as it were.
Yes.
Got it. So were you the the proverbial, because typifying a middle child experience, like you're kind of the mediator, you're the glue that's trying to hold things together. Was that indicative of your experience or no?
No, I was a little asshole. Not a lot's changed. I was like this weird. There's a lot of circumstances that played into it, but I was kind of like not a miracle baby, but I came up. I talk about it in a song. So like my parents lost a child before I was born, and then I came along. So I was like the makeup baby, so to speak.
Whoa, this is happening.
Yeah. And then I grew up and was like very self-sufficient and didn't like need help on homework and shit like that. And I had my privacy. So I was just like this little weird, neurotic piece of shit who like not piece of shit like doing bad things, but being like a little just like annoying, Yeah,
you're precocious.
I was precocious in like the worst way. So yeah, I wasn't necessarily the glue. I had good relationships with both of my brothers, which was good. Although the older one was like 5 years older than me, so kind of a bigger distance. But no, I definitely instigated more problems, I think, than I solved. Because I like my dad would tell me to do something, and I'd be like, "Why? That's stupid." Like.
Yeah. Why am I doing that for you?
Yeah. My back hurts. Why am I pulling weeds for you? Like, this isn't my lot. This isn't my lot in life. I didn't ask to be born into servitude for you.
Sure. Yeah. You're like, logically speaking, I understand the relationship between a parent and child, but this feels like you're overextending your boundaries.
Yeah. I learned at a very young age that I don't like to do things that I don't want to do. And I actively try to avoid it. So, sure. Which is a problem when you're 8. Right.
Yeah, that manifested itself in you pushing back on your parents constantly.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm sure they both enjoyed and absolutely hated. But we got through it. I have good relationships with my parents. So
that's good. And so, as you were, being this precocious child growing up, what sort of identity did you find yourself kind of like, sinking into once you started to understand yourself a little bit better in like, junior high and high school and stuff like that?
That's interesting. I struggle with this constantly that I didn't have one. I've always kind of struggled with figuring out my place and like what I want to do, to this day. So I did play a lot of sports, and I played baseball up through college, because again, we've been in the same circles, we've never met, but I'm like 6'6", like a large dude. So
Right.
Sports was like a natural thing for me. Not natural. I was awful at it. I was awkward and uncomfortable most of the time, but it was like, I could throw.
Your height was like, okay, you're either playing basketball or you're playing baseball.
Yeah, I could throw a baseball 95 miles an hour. So like, you went and did that. You know what I mean? Like that was a thing. I can't, not anymore, obviously. But so I was like a weird. The way I describe it is, I don't know if you watched 30 Rock, but there was an episode where they go to Liz's high school reunion, and she's like, "High school was awful. People treated me terribly," and you find out she was the bully. I was like a weird pseudo jock who wasn't a jock because he liked books and liked punk rock, who just talked shit on everybody and thought he was better than them. And who I thought everybody hated, but I think I was probably the mean one.
My band merch game is strong, and the only reason that it's strong is because of rockabilia.com. Maybe that's a little hyperbole because I've cared about band merch for longer than they've been in business, but that does not mean that they can't outfit your closet with all of the raddest band merch around. So first of all, use this code PC100words. That code PC100words will give you 15% off of your order. Essentially, that's like me giving you a free t-shirt. So go ahead and go to their website, find all of the stuff you could possibly imagine from bands, both big and small, and you can find like hoodies, jackets, scarves, anything you need for the cold winter temperatures that we are currently facing. I mean, I'm in Southern California, so it's not that cold here, but you get the point. Amazing customer service, fast shipping, independently run business from the Midwest. I love this company. I love what they do. And just the people behind it are the real deal. They love music, and they want to make sure that bands get paid by selling officially licensed merch. This is a really important fact. So again, use the code PC100words. That gets you 15% off your order. Go to rockabilia.com and get that free t-shirt with that 15% off. Only if you're buying enough, but you get the point. PC100words.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I myself am a huge advocate for therapy, and I think that most people would benefit from it because, life just really gets in the way sometime. Whether it's a relationship issue, a family issue, a work issue, you feel overwhelmed. You don't know where to turn to. You're like, I can't bug my family and friends about this. Like maybe I'll be able to, just push through it on my own. You do not need to be alone in this journey. And that is why BetterHelp is such a cool option. They are convenient because it's flexible, affordable, and entirely online. And all you do is fill out a brief questionnaire and you get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. I love what they do, and I would really, really encourage you trying therapy for the first time. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can absolutely help get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp.com/Ray. Try therapy, and trust me, it will make your life better.
Finding suitable mental health medications can be a challenge. The GeneSight test may help. Did you know that genetics can play an important role in gaining insight on how a person may respond to various medications? Understanding this may help reduce medication trial and error. GeneSight is a genetic test that analyzes variations in DNA. It shows how genes may affect someone's metabolism or response to medications commonly prescribed to treat depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. Visit genesight.com for more information.
We creatives are the achievers, the doers, the believe when no one else does dreamers. We create no matter what. From cameras to mics, lenses and lights, Adorama has what you need to turn your dreams into a reality. So to you designers, photographers, filmmakers, musicians, we say keep going. It's time to gear up because the world needs your creativity more than ever. And Adorama is your creative partner to help you create no matter what. Go to Adorama.com and equip your creativity. That's Adorama.com.
It's funny, like you kind of articulating that, like it's interesting because when you're living these kind of like different worlds, because usually, especially, in high school or whatever, people are really sticking to their lanes. Like, you're either the sports person or the job, whatever, these identities you fall into. But like when you yourself are straddling the line between all of these and you feel like every group you're in, you are theoretically better than other people in your group. I understand the kind of like, the bravado that you can kind of come into it with.
But it was like so unearned. It was definitely like a young white man's bravado.
Sure.
And it's indicative that I went through like a bunch of different friend groups. Like I kept like a core group of friends, but like I hung out with Christian hardcore kids and I hung out with baseball players and I hung out with skateboarders, and then I hung out, you know what I mean? Like I had like a really motley crew of people, but and that was like our whole crew. Like our whole thing was that we hated where we were and just talked shit on everybody because they all fucking sucked.
Sure. Sure.
And like I stand by it partially. Like you have to stake out your place and when you're young and you're often full of anger. So yeah, I didn't know what the hell I wanted, but I definitely was just in opposition to a lot of stuff, which I guess explains why I got into punk rock, but also I hate punk rock. Like I hate punk rock that's like just to oppose things for the sake of it.
Contrarian by nature.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot of bands that we're not going to get into, but like, that I just don't like because of that thing that people are like, why don't you like this? You like punk rock? I'm like, because it's annoying.
Because it's dumb, right?
Yeah, because it's dumb to me. Yeah, like why aren't they talking about a novel in there? So I'm just kidding. I don't do that either. But you know what I mean. When I was that age, I liked smarter bands. I guess that's such a dumb way to describe it.
Yeah,
like you discover AFI when you're fucking 11 years old in 1999, and you're like, this is deep.
Of course, of course. Well, and especially too, then when you feel like you have unlocked that thing where you're like, oh, like what I was listening to previously is like, kid stuff.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
I mean, it's a weird dichotomy because I never grew out of the kid stuff either.
No.
Because like I listened to a ton of Fall Out Boy in high school and I'm from Southern California. I grew up on Blink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I grew up on Blink and I grew up on The Offspring. Like those were our bands. But then right around the time like middle school, early high school, I discovered like Thrice and Thursday. You know what I mean? And like those bands felt more important. So yeah, it's just been a constant struggle, even musically, of like, what do I like? What do I want to do? Because I try not to live in opposition to everything, even though I think that's my natural inclination is just to be like, I don't know, everything kind of sucks.
Well, it's funny too, because I think that impulse that you're talking about is like, you immediately push back on something and then eventually you'll get around to it. You'll be like, oh, actually, no, that was pretty good. It just takes you longer to get there.
Oh, that's the worst when I make fun of something and then I eventually come around and check it out. And I'm like, fuck, this is good.
What's an example? Because I love these.
I'll give you a good example, and it's recent too. And it's not unfounded. I mean, it was totally unfounded, and it wasn't because I was making fun of it. It's because I just never checked it out. Yeah. But when, whatever I forget his name, left Tiger's Jaw and started doing Wicca Phase.
Oh yeah.
Adam.
Yep.
Who I don't know the Tiger's Jaw people at all. But when he left, I'm huge Tiger's Jaw fan. Like Tiger's Jaw is a great band, and then he left. And I was like, oh, interesting. And then I heard one song, and I was like, oh god, like I can't do emo trap. Like this is not for me. Whatever, do your thing. But then the full length he put out, I listened to it, and I fucking loved it. And I was like, oh man, I did not want to like this, but it was it's incredible. It's great songs, and it's also not. It's not Lil Peep, which is definitely just not for me. But it's interesting to come across things like that. We were like, this is going to suck. I remember I did that when I was a kid. My parents wanted to watch 16 Candles and I had never seen it. And I was like, I don't want to watch this stupid movie. I didn't watch it. And then like a week later I watched and it's like, damn it, this is really good.
Yeah.
I do that a lot. It's a problem of mine for sure.
Well, I think that people that have that inclination, like, it will always be ingrained in there and it's tough to push it away. But then I think once you temper it a little bit, then the things that you do, boomerang around on, you embrace even more and you're even a more vocal proponent of it,
Oh yeah. I'm that way with all my favorite albums too. Like the first time I hear it, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is what I want. I don't know if this is good. And then oftentimes I'll come back around to it and be like, shit, this is incredible.
Right.
Whether I'm talking myself into it or not, I'm not sure, but either way.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's different now. It used to be like, you'd go to the record store and like you'd buy, I'm trying to think of an album that was really disappointing. I remember I was big into Gob. Remember Gob, the Canadian band?
Of course, yeah.
And they had that one album that was incredible, and then they came out with Foot and Mouth Disease, set the album after it, and I went, spent my own money on it, and I got it home and listened to it, and it just like didn't do it for me. But I like forced myself to listen to it for like 2 months just because I had spent money on it.
Of course, you invested.
You invested. It's different now with Spotify, I guess, and or stealing music or whatever. You don't have to put in that investment or try. So I guess there's a plus and minus. You don't have to convince yourself that you like something that you just don't like.
You don't have to be like, you know what, like this record is really good, and then as you grow older, you realize that everybody also hated it. And okay. I guess this was okay for me to have that initial impulse.
We just didn't talk about it.
Yeah, of course, right. You didn't have the megaphone of the internet.
Yeah, now I just try to shut up about it because there's still albums that come out that I just don't like, and I'm just like, it's music. Yeah. I mean, nobody's going to be happy to hear what I think about this album. You know what I mean?
Right.
More likely, people will be more likely to be mad at me. So I'm just gonna, all music's good. We did the podcast with the Patreon, and this whole week we ran through with our co-host like his favorite albums, and they asked me my opinions on like some popular albums that they had some takes on, and I was like, all music's good and all music sucks. Like whatever, let's move on. You birthed it into the world. That's an achievement. It probably is also bad. I mean, just like all of our music is probably bad in the scheme of things. So
right on a sliding scale, if you're talking about the world population, most people will dislike it.
Yeah, right. That's great. We play emotional indie punk rock, like, or whatever you want to describe us as. Our music's not cool. Like I know that, so it's fine.
Right, exactly. And it sounds like a lot of the more independent-minded stuff started to infiltrate your life pretty early. Like, where were you discovering this stuff? Was it all kind of the advent of the internet and MP3.com, or was it shoved into your head via your
older brother? Older brother started it. He forever ruined me. I mean, he'd been ruining me since I was a kid. So he gave me Dookie and he gave me Smash when I was like 6. That was it. I was done.
That is really early, dude.
Yeah, it was great. But again, it's why I can't escape like 3 chords. You know what I mean? It's
sure.
And those are both classics. I prefer Smash, actually. That's my hot take on that stuff. I have a yearbook from when I was in 1st grade. And I don't know why, again, this is me just being a little shithead, but in it is like, what's cool? And I was like, The Offspring. And it's like, what's not cool? And I was like, Green Day.
You're like, so, even though I love both records, one wins. Yeah.
One wins. I was a piece of shit. And then when I was like in middle school is when he would have been in high school. So he was getting like AFI, Strung Out, had that was a big record around that time, Face to Face. And then he gave me the Ataris, Blue Skies, Broken Hearts, Next 12 Exits.
Oh yeah.
I was too young to get an album that emotional about like being in love with people.
Oh, for sure. You hardly even know what that means.
You don't know what it means, but you know what you think it means, and that shit fucks you up. I have a discussion about this with friends all the time, like how influential and maybe kind of dangerous that album was to like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, you're just figuring out how to articulate, like your love for your parents appropriately.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm having feelings about, people outside of my family. Oh, this is weird.
Well, not only that, but then you're like 14, you're between 12 and 14. You're starting to get hormones that make you feel things about other people. But every song you're listening to is about how they're not going to love you. And you're already like a little anxious piece of shit to begin with.
Right.
So you know what I mean? So
you're set up for disappointment.
Yeah. So you just spend a decade being like, I'm unlovable. That's pop punk. It's great.
Right. I identify with you, Chris Rowe.
Yeah, it's great. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's and then it kind of pivoted. So that and then I kind of from there kind of ran off into my own. Oh, and he gave me the Homegrown album, Act Your Age. That was huge.
Great.
And then from there, I kind of pivoted. It kind of took off on its own thing, and the internet took off, and Napster and LimeWire, whatever it was. And then, stealing music because you're 15, which sucks. And then, seeing friends' bands and, local bands. Finch was from Temecula, so that was kind of a gateway into a whole other world.
Mm-hmm.
And then college bands.
Right. But it's interesting because even though you're contrarian by nature, it sounds like you're painting with a pretty wide palette. Like you weren't, which is interesting because usually you would look at, a band like Finch in comparison to, whatever, a more quote unquote credible band like AFI or Anti-Flag, where it's like, but you didn't call BS on that. You liked it.
I think a big part of it was that as much as I hated it is like a sense of community, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And people who, I don't know, people that were saying things that resonated with me. Yeah, I was all over the place, It would be like one week you'd be at like, I don't fucking know, some hardcore show at a church. And then the next week you'd be at like a Hello Goodbye dance party at Chain Reaction.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. I think the common thread that it was all just way too emotional. Which is great, it holds up.
Yeah.
And then also there's like a whole other half of my life, which is like my dad, like a lot of Bruce Springsteen, a lot of like Dwight Yoakam, a lot of, stuff like that, that seeped its way in probably around the time I was like 16. It was when like the Springsteen mania took over. And then, that's how you get every band in our scene from the last 10 years, right? It's like we all liked punk, and then we all liked Springsteen, and we all liked, I don't know, Bright Eyes. And then you get, you have our
weird
band.
amalgamation. Yeah, exactly.
You get our band. That's how I always describe it. I don't know. Every time, it's fun. It's great. I don't care. Those were like pretty. I didn't realize it because we started this band so late. I didn't realize how much that had just sunk into my DNA. Every time somebody makes fun of me on the internet for how I sing, I'm just like, I just learned to sing from listening to Bruce Springsteen and Conor Oberst, right? Like this vibrato is nothing new, you guys. Like this is a thing that people do. Roy Orbison, you know what I mean?
Right. I am not original in any capacity.
No, and I'm not claiming to be, but like, don't say I sound like a goat. Come on. Like I know I do. Like it's fine.
Right.
Some people just sing a certain way.
Sure. And like you mentioned, you were obviously really into sports and like the trajectory of you, like going into college. Because like, did you get a scholarship or partial scholarship?
Yeah, I got a scholarship to play baseball at Santa Clara University. I spent my freshman year there playing baseball and hating my life. Division I sports are the biggest con in America. You're working full-time hours on top of going to school and getting zero money for it.
Right.
It's a fucking joke. I mean, you're getting your scholarship, but like, come on. And then towards the end of that season, I was at practice doing a bunting drill and my leg stuck in the grass and I went one way and my leg went the other way and I tore my meniscus and pretty much ripped it out. And it's not like a serious injury. People come back from it. But being my size, my 6-week injury ended up taking 3 months to recover from, just from like the weight gain and, getting back to it. And at that time I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I hate this.
You're out. Yeah.
I like playing music more. But of course, instead of playing music, I just went back to school and played in some shitty pop punk bands, but didn't actually try to do anything. And then, because a lot of my life has been guided by the need to do what I want and get paid to do it, so that I don't have to struggle and I can have the things I want in my life. That's everybody's goal. But music was never an option because it didn't pay.
Of course.
It still doesn't pay, but now I'm 30 and I don't care about anything. So it's fine. But I mean, it's not fine. I'm living the same struggle now as I did when I was 20. But just because I've switched careers 3 times, you know what I mean? I can't pick a lane. Again, going back to like the fact that I don't fit in any particular thing. So music was always just a hobby. And then finally when this band started getting some success, I was like, of course, like now it's happening when I'm
now I got to make a decision, right?
When I'm almost 30, the band is finally getting actually, when Schmaltz came out, I had just turned 30. So, and that was the first time we got any attention from anybody really. And so I was like, oh, cool. Now I have to leave the film career I've been putting, 8 years into, and go do this thing because it seems like an option. But by that point I had never done it. I'd never given it like the real shot, and you see all your friends, not all, but a lot of your friends go off and do it, or like people, go off and do it and find success. And you're like, wait, why wasn't I doing that when I was 19? Like, why did I stop?
Right.
Because it didn't pay. Ooh, like I have such a backwards way of living my life, but it worked out. I suppose we'll see, to be determined.
Right. And so what were you actually studying in school?
So I went back, I was an English major. I was just going to teach. I was going to go be a professor. That was my goal.
Got it.
And I was in a Hemingway and Fitzgerald class, and the professor spent an hour lecturing about the use of the color yellow in The Great Gatsby, and I changed my major that day because I was like, this is fucking stupid.
I don't get this.
No, I don't. So I switched to creative writing, and then, which I guess made sense, and was doing that, and then was going to go get my MFA in like creative nonfiction type thing, and try to write for magazines. And this is around the time that the journalism world was imploding. And I saw the writing on the wall of like, oh, I'm gonna have to go try to get Twitter followers and work at Gawker or something, and then like segue that into a career, which again, I have a few friends that have done, and their lives seem amazing, but that was not going to be for me. So I pivoted out of that and randomly took a screenwriting class. And then that ended up with me moving to LA and trying to write on TV shows and being going to film school, and then being in like an endless dance of, near misses of like taking meetings and being told, not this one, but you would have been perfect, but we staffed last week. A lot of that bullshit. And
right.
Just kind of bouncing
the whole LA grind.
The LA grind, which is, it was a thing, and I did it, and I worked on some movies. I was a assistant to a director and was starting to get into producing stuff for him. And then the band that led up to Bright Faces. So I was like, I don't really like producing, and the writing thing is I'm losing time to do it. And there's the TV world is kind of imploding in its own way. So I was like, fuck it. Like, just do the thing that you've always liked. You know what I mean? I've played guitar and written songs since I was 12, and I've never given it a fair shot. So like, just go do the fucking thing. And then of course the world shut down. So,
right. It's on pause. It's on pause.
It's on pause. We're fine. We're still here.
Right. What comparing and contrasting, because I mean most of the entertainment industry at large, always kind of exists roughly on the same structure of like, who the connections you make and stuff like that. And living in both like, the Hollywood world and obviously the, DIY, punk world that we come from, how would you kind of compare and contrast the things? Like, are they so similar that, most people would be surprised, or are they so drastically different because it's, you're talking about big boy money versus, playing to 100 people and, wherever?
I think they're both similar in that they're kind of just like power structures. I have never felt like I've gotten very far in both in terms of like networking or knowing people.
Sure.
So I'm maybe not the best person. Like, people be like, oh, what band do you want to like? Do you have any friends that you want to go do this with? I'm like, I don't know if we have very many band friends that like, I don't know. People came up together. We didn't, you know what I mean? We're this like weird, we're from LA and nobody knows that we're from LA. You know what I mean? Like that's definitely our lot. But it's definitely just like weird little power structures, and not like it's just people helping out their friends or making money off of artists. In both cases, the movie industry, there's a lot more money at play.
Sure.
So you can fuck up more. But you know, the people in the music industry might be worse. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think that structures like this invite multiple types of people to them, and I think on the extremes you have people who are probably awful people who want to take advantage of power, and then you have people who are naive enough to believe that they can create something and it'll do some good, and then everything in between.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird being in both. I prefer music. It's just as fake. I don't know. I feel like it sounds like I'm really down on everything and I'm talking shit on everybody I've ever met, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, no, that's just, that's your go-to disposition.
And, I mean, that is true. Like I made it sound like, oh, woe was me. I gave up my life in LA to go on tour. And then there was a pandemic. Like I'm the only one that's affected and like millions of people aren't dead.
Right.
It hasn't like, I'm fine. But in the nature of my life and the story of my life, this is a funny moment for, I don't know. It's a funny moment for anybody who opened a fucking restaurant this year. I was like, this is it. I'm putting my dream forward. We're opening a fucking restaurant. It's going to be so fucking good. And then like it stops and you're shit out of luck. And like, you can only laugh. It's so dark and so tragic that like the only thing to do is laugh at it, because if you think about it too long, and not being a touring musician, like I'm fine. I found a job, like we're good. But if you think about it too long, there's a lot of people who like this year has just crushed them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of like working class people. I mean, think about all the people who work at venues who don't have a job right now and like can't, and like they love it. You know what I mean? They love working and doing sound or whatever, and they can't. And it's like, that fucking sucks. So like how else to get through? I'm just the type of person who I have to laugh to get through stuff, or else I'm going to fucking
Of course, it's
die.
either laughing or crying. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. And kind of, on the point of like the, like the business aspect, like you seem like a person, that obviously is kind of leading the business charge, as it were, for Spanish Love Songs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, working with other people in regards to, booking and management and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But did that come naturally to you, or is that something that you were like, well, I guess I'll do this because like I have to? Like, where did you kind of sit on that?
No, I'm a dictator. Not like a
control freak. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. Cause I have opinions, even if they're wrong. I managed us for a long time out of the fact that if I didn't, I don't think anybody else would have.
Sure.
Gabe, our old bass player, did a pretty good job of it too. He and I booked all of the early tours. And then we got a booking agent. Like we always joke, again, cause we're older and like, I've seen how the world works a little bit, like, versus like a 19-year-old. We've always joked that we're a DIFM band, do it for me. Because like booking your own tours sucks. Like I don't want to be the guy who has to book tours and then yell at the fucking promoter afterwards for not paying us. Like we're supposed to keep, and I guess this comes from like working in LA, where it's like, I could take a meeting with somebody and be like, you're a fucking piece of shit. I fucking hate you. But just be totally polite. And then afterwards, it's like my manager's job to be like, no, you're a piece of shit. That deal's awful. You know what I mean? Like we have to put people in between us to keep up like the appearances that we want to work with people, because you never know who you're going to have to work with again. So when you're doing it DIY and you have a promoter or like somebody who fucks up and you really hate, and then you have to be the one to like go set them straight. It's uncomfortable, and it like can damage relationships that should otherwise, work normally. And then on top of that, it's just a shit ton of work. And same thing with like trying to manage everything we do. And at a certain point, you have to outweigh like the opportunity cost of like, could I have gotten us a certain deal with a merch company to run this store that we were having trouble keeping up with? You know what I mean? Or like, could I have gotten us X or could I have gotten us Y? And at a certain point, it's just about expanding your like team and your network to try to, I don't think anybody can really go it alone. And I think that anybody who acts like they've done it entirely by themselves is full of shit, you know?
Right.
Like, we're self-managed. We made it this far. It's like, no, you have, like, there's something going on. Like, you have somebody pulling for you.
Right.
Because you can't live in isolation because you won't get anything done because people will be like, who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? Like I said, when we were starting out, like, at a certain point, somebody has to vouch for you and be like, this band is worthy of our attention or, like, our energy. You know, however that happens. And I think it's the same thing with just, like, this is why we have people that we work with now. Also, because like the more you do your thing, you want to make sure that like you're not just up your own ass. Like, you know,
yeah, you need people to tell you. It's like, dude, this is stupid.
This is a bad idea. Don't do it. Because I have a lot of really fucking dumb ideas. You know, because a lot of times you're just throwing shit at the wall, being like, what? Especially nowadays, it's like, what will fans like? Like, what stupid? That sounds so calculated. And we're not a calculating band, but like, should I tweet this? Is this funny? Is this stupid? Like a lot of times you're just like, I'm bored and I want to say something, you know what I mean? And it's awful, but like creating engagement or I don't know, promoting a tour or promoting an album or even writing the fucking album and you have a song and you're like, this is amazing. And somebody comes in like, it's really not, guys. Like, I think that voice is important. I think that having outside voices, because again, you're not just, you can set out to create for yourself. You know what I mean? But at a certain point, there's an intersection of like other people. And so it's good to have the opinions of other people occasionally, not to like value them above all else, but like, it's good if somebody goes, I don't know, you know, even, I mean, for us,
Let's
even
talk about that. Yeah.
Even for us, bringing new people into the band caused that, you know what I mean? Like we wrote Schmaltz and it was largely me and Kyle and Ruben and Meredith, like in different variations. Like I had the songs and Ruben and I would bang them out and then Kyle and I would record them. Meredith came in at the end and did her keys and like that was the thing. And on this album, Trevor had joined the band and like I'd be arranging with Ruben and he'd show up and he'd be like, "Is that the best we can do? Is that?" And I'd be like, "What'd you think?" And I'd be like, "What'd you think?" He's like, "It's fine." You're just like, fuck
like,
you,
well,
dude.
Okay, yeah.
What do you mean it's fine? This is the best song I've ever written. You know what I mean? And then you have to keep. Yeah, I find that collaboration to be powerful and refreshing because I'm the type of person who, if left to my own, will go crazy with the choices and the self-doubt, you know?
Of course. You'll never actually get it out because you'll be revising it for the 750th time.
Yeah, and there's that whole idea, again, from Hollywood of, like, the note behind the note. So if somebody tells you something's bad, like, something's not working in a song, like, their idea might be terrible, but it might push you to find the next thing that actually is better. And sometimes I need somebody to tell me that something's not great to say, fuck you, it is, and, like, commit to it. So I guess the theme of this is that I just like to be antagonized and to antagonize.
Right. You like pushing boundaries and then people pushing back on you.
That's great.
For those
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Constant friction.
Yeah. Listen, if my life is not in conflict, what would I do?
Right. You're not being inspired.
What? Yeah.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Trust me in saying that therapy is an incredible tool for as you are traveling through life, because who you are as a person, 5 or 10 years ago is maybe a completely different version of yourself because we run into challenges, whether it's work, whether it's life stuff, relationships, all of those things you can work through with a therapist. And that is why I love BetterHelp and what they do. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and then you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Ray. Dip in, give therapy a try, and become a better person.
Finding suitable mental health medications can be a challenge. The GeneSight test may help. Did you know that genetics can play an important role in gaining insight on how a person may respond to various medications? Understanding this may help reduce medication trial and error. GeneSight is a genetic test that analyzes variations in DNA. It shows how genes may affect someone's metabolism or response to medications commonly prescribed to treat depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. Visit genesight.com for more information.
It all started in 1974 when we were the original source for New York creatives. Today, Adorama's got it all. Photography, gaming, music, and more. But one thing hasn't changed. No matter your medium, Adorama helps you create no matter what. Access our vast catalog of gear. Get pro-level support and customer service from the experts. Adorama. Create no matter what. Learn more at adorama.com.
It's interesting too, because with the kind of the heart on the sleeve nature that the band exists in, I mean, bands like, you guys and the Menzingers and, many of your peers.
Yeah.
There is this, real intrinsic connection that people, obviously feel with the music and the lyrical content. But then at the same time, people are looking at you for, I'm using this, maybe hyperbolically, but like looking to you for answers, where it's like, oh, well, like Dylan's singing about this. So like, I feel a kinship to him. So like, I'm going to, ask questions on Twitter or whatever, being dramatic, but like.
No, yeah, it's interesting.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I tell this people when, it was weird on tour the first few times when somebody come up and tell us like a really, really touching / depressing story. And I had a hard time understanding it or like grappling with it. But first off, it's an honor and it's incredibly humbling that somebody would feel that towards us and like our shitty songs. You know what I mean? Like the fact that they resonate and that you would take the time to like come up to me and tell me something and be vulnerable. That's just like that floors me. And I always try to hold on to that. And then the next thing I say is like, I am not professional and I have no answers. You know what I mean? Like I'm here to be a sounding board and I'm here for you to feel like you know me. That's fine. Some of this shit gets very personal. Even the songs that are stories about other people, like it's still me. Like and I chose that subject for a reason. So yeah, I had something else I was going to say and I lost it. It's an interesting thing. And it's something that we try to be aware of and, try to, I still struggle with not with the uncomfortableness of the situation, but with having the right answer. Even just like in a response to a kind email or something. But I think the other thing with us is I think with our songs in particular, they're written to not have an answer. Like I'm not trying to answer any big questions. I'm just kind of being like, well, here's what it is. About. This sucks. I don't know what to do. Like that's the entire point of the album is like, everything's hopeless, but I don't know what to do about it. Let's just be nice to each other. Right. That's like a very reductive reading of the album, but and then Schmaltz was definitely just like, well, I'm a piece of shit. I don't know what to do about it, but I am. So now you know.
Right. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, let's get into how much I suck, and then Giant was very much the same way. It was like, wow, I suck so much that the only woman who loved me left me. So I don't know.
This is where we're starting from.
Yeah.
And I guess on that same tip too, I mean, you, from all that I know about you, I mean, you are a friendly and an outgoing person.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure sliding scale.
I do consider myself to be a nominally pleasant person, but I have been described as an acquired taste my entire life.
And would that be defined because you are, kind of sucking all the air out of the room in regards to like, oh, there's Dylan walking in here, he's going to be the center of attention, or is that something else?
I think it depends on where you're at. I definitely am a bit of a loud piece of shit. Like I have opinions and I think not so much anymore. Is again, I'm saying these things like I'm so old, but like you change a lot over the, you know what I mean? You do change, and I feel like the back half of my 20s and now has been a slow killing off of the parts of myself that are unhealthy, or just bad for other people. That makes me sound like it's some like selfless act, but no, it's just been about being like, wow, I suck. But yeah, in my younger days, I was definitely like, again, I was just like I was just contrarian asshole who'd be like, well, no, you're wrong because this. And it's like, gee, I don't fucking know anything. Like,
right. Or do I really believe this?
I'm the type of person, and I still do this more for fun nowadays, where like somebody will ask something and be like, what is that? And I'll have no clue what it is, but I'll just like say something about what it is. Like I'll act like I've read the Wikipedia and I have no fucking clue. But now it's more a joke to try to get the person to go like, you're so full of shit, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what a fucking, I don't know. I don't have a good example, but
right.
You know, yeah. But yeah, that plus just the fact that I'm, depressive and anxious and moody and all of the fun things that make up an not unstable, but just I'm a person. Like I'm a depressive person. Like I have moods, I have feelings, and going back to the fact that I don't like to do things I don't want to do. I don't like to hide things that I don't want, like that I don't deem worthy of hiding. So if I'm in a bad mood, like I'm not going to like smile and be happy with you when I'm at a fucking party with people I don't know.
Right.
I'm going to sit in the corner and be like, when the fuck can we leave? I don't want to be here.
Totally.
Yeah. Like that's me at every social gathering though. So
sure. Yeah. So no, there's nothing too different from one to another.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Or I'm just always depressed. I don't know, but these are the things.
Yeah. It's and so like when you started to, I mean, maybe not even specifically with Spanish love songs, but like, once you started to like get up and be on stage and, quote unquote perform, was that, I guess, comfortable for you, or did you have to learn how to do that?
Weirdly, I've never had a problem with it, again, because I think I secretly like being the center of attention, but on my own terms.
Okay.
And there's definitely something more powerful when I have the microphone than when you're like, if we're just having a conversation. Because it's like, no, these are my songs and I'm singing. You can shut up. You go do your art at another time.
Yeah, you got no choice. It's right.
Look how special I am. I mean, yeah, it's great. It's fun. There's no better feeling. It's egotistically gratifying. And that's not a bad thing. I think everybody should chase that in their job. Like, find a job that makes you feel like you are the king of the world.
Sure.
Although, there's again, this also goes back to mood though, because there are shows where I'm on stage and I'm fucking miserable. Like whether I don't feel well, or I just wonder what I'm doing with my life, or the audience is staring at us dead faced because we're playing the wrong show for us.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, not every time on stage is good, but like we won't show that. Like that's, we've reached the point where it's like you can have the worst day of your life. Like you could be having a shitty Tuesday and want to kill everybody in the band and want to go home and start a farm in the middle of nowhere. But like for the person that's there to see you, they've spent their money to spend their night out. Like that Tuesday is their night out. And they're probably with their friends or with their loved one. And they took the time out of their day to come see you. Even if they didn't come to see your band, if you can see their face, they're watching your fucking band. So like,
yeah, they're there.
They're there. They are present. And that's more than you deserve. So we definitely have like learned to accept and lean in and appreciate that. But yeah, I definitely like, it wasn't hard to be on stage.
Got it.
Yeah. I say all these things, but like, yeah, like, oh, I'm uncomfortable with people, but we're talking for an hour and I've talked most of this time. I'll talk nonstop and,
you're like, I got this.
I'm not afraid to like say how I feel,
Sure.
To the point where like after this, I'm going to think back and be like, you're such a dumbass. Like, why'd you say that thing? Why did you hint at that? Why did you allude to like everything I do where I say something in any remotely public way, I just question everything I said. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble or somebody's going to be mad. And like, yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's the duality of life.
Yeah. It's, it's everybody's life.
your body's checking issuing checks that your body can't cash, and or whatever that saying is. Yeah.
I also think faster, and like I think and say things faster than I am analyzing them a lot of times.
Sure.
So I'm definitely prone to like saying something, and then 5 minutes later, like one part of my brain is still thinking about it, and then I feel guilty, and then I get distracted, and then I'm issuing apologies for something. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Let's see how this feels.
Yeah.
Whoops. Okay.
Oopsie.
Maybe I shouldn't have said. Yeah. Two last things I want to hit on were you and your significant other moved to Nashville, right? Is that where you guys are at now?
That is correct.
What precipitated the move besides, Los Angeles obviously being the dumpster fire that you were you were describing? You were describing.
We left.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, no, I mean, we still love LA. I have a soft spot in LA. We left because we were going to be touring, and we didn't feel like paying LA rent prices to not be home.
Sure.
And so we did that, and we went on tour, and we gave up all of our. Actually, it's funny. We left LA last April, did the tour in Europe with Pew, came home, and then immediately went back to LA to like work on the album.
Sure.
But then we were just living in like Kyle's sister was out of town, so we were like living in her bedroom, which was weird. I mean, it was so nice of her, but just like not our home. And then we finished the album, then went on tour, had the holidays at home, and then we were supposed to be touring. With that Men's and Years tour picked up in mid-January, and we had tours booked up until last week that just haven't happened. So
right.
After the tour, we didn't have a home. So we were spending time in Iowa, kind of crashing. And then that derecho storm hit Cedar Rapids. And we were like, well, we should just go get a place. So it was literally that, just a year and some change of not having our own space. We were like, let's get the fuck out of there. And then we were choosing between a few different cities. Nashville was close. We liked Nashville. We've always had sights set on living in the South at some point. Nashville's like near South, I feel like, but it's still the South.
Sure. South adjacent. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is the South. There's definitely Southern vibes here, but I spent time in other parts of the South that feel much more Southern.
It's not the deep South, right? It's
not the deep South, which is great. This is perfect for us. And Nashville's it's a big music city. It's cheap. It's probably a good move career wise. There was a few other places we almost moved, but we definitely did like a calculated, like when touring resumes, where would be a good place to be? Because like, as much as I love living in the Pacific Northwest, it'd be so shitty to be in a band. I don't know how they do it. It's like, cool. You have a day and a half drive to get anywhere.
Totally. Yeah. You got to start so far in order to get to the place.
And that was another problem with California, is just like, being a band that's more popular in the Midwest and the East Coast, we'd like go out, we'd play like a fine show, we'd get out, play some amazing shows, and then have to drive back through less than amazing shows. And it was really defeating to be like, high point of your tour is midway through your tour.
Well, and to your point, I mean, that is not usually an area where most bands, excel.
Yeah.
Most bands are like, well, can't wait to get through Lincoln and Salt Lake City, and then we get to California, or then we get to Chicago, or
which
whatever.
Sucks too, because like there, places like that, I wish there was a way to make the shows better. Just because like places like Tulsa or Kansas City or Omaha, these are like great cities, and I love being there. I love meeting people there and playing in them. But at the same time, like the like ego crazed musician in you is like, fuck, like we lost money tonight and we played to 5 people. This is 2018. I don't know how it'd be now, obviously, but
right.
That was definitely a move too, of like every tour we do out of California has to be a nationwide tour, or like has to be a minimum 3 weeks. If we live in the Midwest or the East Coast, we can do week-long runs. Because we did a run with
easier access.
Yeah, and we did a run with Iron Chic where they're like, yeah, we're doing 7 days. I was like, fuck you guys, that's amazing. Like we couldn't do that out of California. And so
Right.
that was definitely on the, that was on our minds as well. Even though two of us still live in and around, I guess, Southern California. Now, Ruben's in Rolling Heights and Kyle's out in Fontana. He had to leave LA too, like price wise.
Yeah, sure. And kind of the last thing was just the you're, because you are at a quote unquote advanced age in regards to the punk and hardcore and DIY scenes.
We're dinosaurs in punk and touring years.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm 40 years old, and the fact that like I still care about it is one of those things where it's just like people look at me like, "What are you talking about? Why do you still care?" It's just like, well, because I do.
It feels like something.
Obviously.
It feels like something that's slowly. I guess it's probably always been like this, but like at least the bands that we grew up on are still playing. A lot of them, and the bands that are our peers are still going to be playing. It feels like, you know what I mean. It doesn't feel like anybody's going away. I think a lot of us,
for sure.
I think a lot of people, like maybe just a few years and a few steps ahead of us, have carved out pretty nice careers for themselves. It's all really working class things, and that's fine. Like we don't mind being a blue collar band. We know we need to tour 200 days a year, and to make a blue collar living, and it's, to me, it's a day job, and it's great when we can do it. So we're fully ready for that. I love touring, but sorry, I cut off your question. Yes, I'm old.
No. Yes, yeah, right. Yes, you're old. But the why do you still care? And I know that's like a real whatever, maybe inflammatory question, but just like, what makes you still feel connected to the fact of besides the point of creating art and putting it out there, why do you still care about kind of the DIY nature and, like you said, kind of the blue collar nature of putting things together for the band?
I mean, for me, I feel like I'm a little bit different because this is something I wanted to do when I was younger. And I watched a lot of people that I knew keep doing it and finding success, and they're much better off now than where I'm at. I came in late. The greatest review I saw for Schmaltz, I bring it up constantly, was that somebody reviewed it and said, this is an album about what your life is like if you're not the Wonder Years or you're not the Menzingers.
Sure.
But you're their age, which I thought was hilarious. But so for me, it's like, this is stuff I've just been meaning to do. And we're not actually that old. I feel like we're maybe old if we were trying to play like the really like young, attractive pop punk game, which we're neither young nor attractive. So we're good. We're good there. Mm-hmm. I think we're definitely playing that more kind of like, indie world. And the bands that I look up to, a lot of them were kind of our age when they were cementing what they do. Actually, you look at something like the Hold Steady or like the Mountain Goats, bands like that are more so approaching their 50s or in their 50s and are having, maybe the best runs of their career and are consistently. I saw the Mountain Goats right the day before we started recording the album. I had a friend on tour with them and they got us tickets. And I was like, God, like Mountain Goats have been around since I was fucking 5 years old, and we're just obscure and then became more known and then became like an indie darling type thing. But like, dude's like early 50s playing to 1,000 people in LA. And I'm just like, that's the dream. And you do it because I'd be writing songs or writing stories anyways. And, if there's anybody out there who's willing to take the time to engage and be like, this means something to me, then it's like, well, then why wouldn't we try? And again, like it's an extremely fulfilling job, for your ego, not necessarily financially. And if I could find a job that like pays a blue collar wage and it also makes me feel satisfied with my life, that's great. That's the dream. That's the closest to escaping the kind of capitalistic grind that you can hope, I guess. Which I'm acutely aware of the fact that I'm like, I want to be happy by just finding a job I love and getting paid to do it. Like it's such a naive thing to chase, but at least it's the other point about why we do it though, is that like, I don't have a ton else that I've learned that I don't have a ton else that I'm like decent at. This is it. This is kind of my skill set.
Sure.
Which is weird you know, again, when you're young and kind of arrogant, you're like, I can fucking do anything. Like I could go write movies. I could do this. I could do that. And I've had so many careers where I've gotten close, you know, and I'm an idiot for choosing careers that are like long shots to begin with. You know what I mean? Like I got close with baseball. I got close with writing for TV. I've been close with music, but to me, this is the first time that like somebody's actually taken what I've done and be like, oh no, you're not full of shit. This is good. You know, not a ton of people, but enough people to make me feel like,
yeah, oh, I'm not completely wasting my
time.
Right?
Right. Like we're not fully delusional. You know, you at a certain point when you're an artist, you're like, you have to live your delusion to like make it happen. You know, it's like fake it till you make it. Like, but at a certain point you live your delusion for so long that you start to wonder like, am I full of shit? Or like, am I so far up my own ass that I think I'm still good when I'm terrible?
Right.
And there's nothing more, like to me personally, there's nothing sadder than seeing that person slowly realize it. Because it's heartbreaking, not because I'm mad that they suck. Like, I don't care if you're good or bad at what you do, but like to realize that you are not good enough to fulfill your dream is like, makes me want to die.
Yeah.
Like
it's painful.
Even saying that out loud, like my insides just collapsed a little bit.
Yeah.
And so like this is the first time where I feel like we're maybe a little bit past that. And of course it could all change on like a fucking dime. Like we could put out an album, people would be like, you're not cool anymore. Go away. And like, that's the joke is like, I joke that we're older, so we're not allowed to put out like a bad album because we won't have time to recover from it. Sure. So people are like, how do you guys like, do you feel any pressure or anything? It's like, no, man, we're the best way to describe what we're doing is like, we are just like a bunch of nihilists kind of shrugging because like, this is it. Well, we didn't expect this. Like nothing good was happening anyways. And now like, if we fuck up, it's gone and we can just stop doing this. Like, that's fine. We can go back to like, we can go back to our regularly scheduled lives and, you know, maybe have a retirement, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
But if not,
have some security.
Yeah, we can have a 401k. You know, that's been the weirdest thing about the pandemic is that most of us have gone back to like 9-to-5 jobs. Like Meredith has a 401k at her new job, and like I'm like, for like a month, the 9-to-5 was very steady and comforting, and I was like, I get up at 7 every day now, and I exercise and I do this, and I'm already losing my mind. I'm just like, the pandemic has caused my worst fear, which is working a regular job.
Right.
You know, that makes me sound so like privileged and lucky, but I mean, we are privileged and lucky, but, you know, it's definitely, we grind at it. So I don't know. It's different. I've been hearing that phrase. What is it? Courses for horses, horses for courses. I don't fucking know. It's like different strokes. Like some people like the security and like their job. I have tons of friends. I have a friend who like works at a fucking bank and loves his job and has a good retirement and will be able to do cool things when he's 60. I don't think I'm going to make it to 60. So I'm trying to do all the cool things now. And then I'll fucking worry about it then.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey man, live fast, die young, bro. No, just kidding.
God, I hate that
worst.
This entire hour and change of conversation has led to what I said was that.
I understand. I know that's not what you actually meant, but yes, that's the
context though.
Yeah, no, I understand. But I know you're not one of those people, so you're okay.
It's fine. Damn it.
It's okay, Dylan. It's okay. We accomplished something here, whether you know it or not.
If you make that the fucking social media poll quote for this interview, I won't be mad, but I will be so mad.
Sure, I understand. I won't do that. This is the gem at the last 5% of the interview.
Perfect.
So we're good.
This is for all the diehards who hung in past all the bullshit.
Exactly. Well, Dylan, thanks so much for hanging out, dude.
Of course.
I really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That was Dylan. Please look at everything they have going on over at Patreon. You just Google Patreon Spanish love songs, but they are doing some really, really fun, inventive, and cool things on their Patreon. Just, I don't know, like chats and like live shows, just a lot of fun stuff. And if you have not checked out their record, Brave Faces, everyone, please do. Just dive into the record, and I promise you it will capture you in a very real way. So thank you, Dylan, for coming on the show. And next week I have, oh man, I'm so excited about this one. I had Pete Appleby from the bands Renee Hartfelt and Count Me Out. And both of those bands I hold in very high esteem, and I was glad to track Pete down. He's actually, a practicing dentist, and he's not a person that does a ton of interviews. And so I was glad to be able to make the connection via a friend. Shout out to Sean Rohr, who hooked me up from 613 on Records to have this interview. So that's what we do next week. And like I always tell you, please be safe, everybody.
Millions of Planet Fitness members are defeating low energy and finding their big fitness energy. And right now, you can join them for just $1 down and $10 a month. That's so nice, I think I'll say it twice. You can join Planet Fitness for $1 down and $10 a month. No commitment. Cancel anytime. What a deal! Join the judgment-free zone today and enjoy tons of equipment in a clean and spacious club. $1 down, $10 a month. No commitment. Cancel anytime. Deal ends Wednesday, April 5th. See Home Club for details.
Finding suitable mental health medications can be a challenge. The GeneSight test may help. Did you know that genetics can play an important role in gaining insight on how a person may respond to various medications? Understanding this may help reduce medication trial and error. GeneSight is a genetic test that analyzes variations in DNA. It shows how genes may affect someone's metabolism or response to medications commonly prescribed to treat depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. Visit GeneSight.com for more information.
It all started in 1974 when we were the original source for New York creatives. Today, Adorama's got it all. Filmmaking, gaming, music, and more. But one thing hasn't changed. No matter your medium, Adorama helps you create no matter what. Tap into the source for tools, tips, and gear. Gamers, join us on Twitch. Connect with eSport champs and take your game to the next level. Adorama. Create no matter what. Learn more at adorama.com/gaming.